Hello and welcome to Full of a Took podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm Laura.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Robbie Jean.
And we are starting a podcast. This is episode 1 of Full of a Took. Basically, the point of this podcast is I have seen the Lord of the Rings movies several times in my life, and I love them. But I've never read the book, and I've seen it it's been on my shelf for several years. I'm married to a book lover, Robbie over here, and she constantly talks about, how good books are. And I'm always looking at Lord of the Rings up on the shelf and thinking it's too big. I can't tackle that. I'm not a big reader. It's literally up there. Look how it's like the King James Bible.
It's intimidating.
It's bigger.
It's bigger. And I thought this is the year that I read The Lord of the Rings. But because I am a psychopath, I have to make all of my best friends read it with me and talk about it on a weekly show. So we're going to do one chapter each episode. We're going to break it down. If you haven't read Lord of the Rings, this is the podcast for you. You can follow along. This is your chance to take it week by week with us on this journey, chapter by chapter. If you've already read Lord of the Rings, this is a great way to just catch up, relive the world, and watch as some fools over here try to make their way through Lord of the Rings.
So I fell into this trap when Chris said, "Hey, Pat, I'm going to read The Fellowship of the Ring." And I thought, awesome, that's really cool. He says, "You want to read it too?" And I said, absolutely. And now I'm on a podcast. I don't it happened very fast.
How did this happen?
Right, exactly. But what I really love about this is that it's about sharing the Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship of the Ring, because growing up, this was so important to me. My mom would read this to my siblings and I once a summer. It was our bedtime story for the entire summer break, and it was always amazing. And I read it just about every year, or had it read to me just about every year from the age of 7 to 17. Absolutely love it. I love that I'm able to share this. And I love that Laura my lovely wife, has finally gotten on board with Lord of the Rings.
I have seen the movies repeatedly. It's not like I'm completely new to this, but I have not read the books. I did read The Hobbit, which was a very easy read. So now we are diving into the entire Odyssey here, and I'm excited.
It's going to be good.
And I'm so excited because I've been saying for years, 20 years to be exact, that I was going to reread The Lord of the Rings, and I never had. And I get the chance to reread it not only with my husband, but 2 of our best friends. So I'm very excited to go on this journey again and relive this amazing book series. And I'm happy to have you guys with us too.
Yeah, you just said something about The Hobbit. I did read The Hobbit 11 years ago.
It's been about that long for me too.
It was 2013. I was doing a job in Africa. And I bought The Hobbit at the airport because I realized I was getting on a 19-hour flight and I forgot a book.
I also read it on a plane.
And I grabbed The Hobbit and I was like, I'll read The Hobbit. I like the movie, The Lord of the Rings. And I was addicted to it. I read it the whole way through and it was so good. And then I went to the Barnes and Noble or something when I got home and it was this behemoth of Lord. And I was like, I'm not reading that. That's crazy. So this is it. We're doing it. Let's dive into it.
So every week when we go through the book, what we're going to do is we're going to structure the episode in a way that makes sense for people who haven't read. So you can follow along, and then we're going to have hopefully interesting discussion afterwards. So we're going to start with a summary, like a 10,000-foot view of the chapter. Then we're going to go into discussion about it.
We'll talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, what we would have changed. And also, Laura has decided to either provide food or beverage, which is a surprise each week, based on the chapter we read, which is really cool. So we'll do that later on, correct?
Yep.
All right, awesome. It's a surprise. I don't know what it is. I never know what it is. That's what makes it awesome. And then we'll wrap up and get out of here. Why don't you kick us off with a summary of Chapter 1 of The Fellowship of the Ring?
All right. Chapter 1, A Long Expected Party. And why is it long expected? Because it's Bilbo Baggins' 111th birthday. It's also the birthday of his cousin and adopted heir, Frodo Baggins. Now, Bilbo had adopted Frodo because his parents drowned while boating, which is apparently a very vicious sport in the Shire. Everyone's afraid of boats, and they don't really go into why. So Frodo is orphaned, and he becomes this like child growing up in a warren of cousins, and Bilbo, when Frodo comes of age, adopts him and names him his heir. And so he has advertised that he's going to have this massive party to celebrate his 111th birthday, to celebrate Frodo's birthday, to celebrate the adoption and the establishment of his heir. So it's literally the talk of the entire Shire. The entire country is talking about the lunatic Bilbo Baggins and his giant birthday party and what's going to happen, because nobody really knows what to expect. So one of the people who gets the light shined on them as they sit around and discuss all this in all the taverns and bars and eateries and what have you in the Shire is the gardener, because the gardener knows what's up. Old Gaffer. So he is privy to information no one else has, and people get really into it. But overall, he really establishes and defends the character of Bilbo and Frodo. And we learn a lot about him, about all three of them actually, through this discussion. Once we get to that point, once all these characters are established, the party preparation begins. And this is all narrated, right? So it has a very particular character. But one of the most significant arrivals is Gandalf, who's described as basically just being this old man in a blue hat who's known for his fireworks. Because the last time there were any fireworks in the Shire was 70 years ago at the old Took's funeral, essentially. The old Took lived to 130 years old. So Bilbo at 111 is going for it. I don't know if he's going to break the record or not. But the whole Shire knows Gandalf as basically just like a funny, weird traveler who hands out fireworks to children.
Very responsible.
Very.
Absolutely.
And it gets to the point where like there's dwarves coming in and they're setting up tents and all the cooks in the area are showing up and all the supplies start flowing and everybody is hanging around because the gardener's been spilling the beans on everything. So they have to hang up a sign at one point, no admittance except on party business. And this turns away just about everybody, but you've got all kinds of people poking and prodding and they want to see what's going on. So it's days of preparation. Like they take a huge field and they erect tents and tables and the whole thing because literally everyone gets an invitation. And if you didn't get an invitation on the day of the party, if you can physically get there, you just showed up. Literally everyone came to this party. And they accounted for that. The food, the drink, the tables, the seating, the whole thing. Bilbo is throwing one hell of a party. It is It is his fucking birthday. And everyone's going to know.
I like this guy.
Right. So the day of the party dawns, it happens. Everybody is super excited. They show up. There's food, there's drink, there's gifts because hobbits give presents on their birthday. They don't necessarily receive presents.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cute.
Right? Like hobbits are extremely wholesome.
I love them.
Don't cry.
I'll try.
It's okay. You're really going to have to hold it together later.
Okay.
It gets a little rough sometimes.
All right. We'll do this.
So the day of the party comes and everyone's having a great time. And then, you know, the sun I almost had the lights go down. The sun goes down and then it's time for fireworks. And so Gandalf pulls all the stops out and you have these trees in the sky that are like weeping golden flowers and you have explosions and like designs. And it ends in a finale that is an enormous red dragon that just dive bombs the entire party like 3 times and then explodes. It just boom, goes fucking nuts. And everybody's like justifiably upset and a little traumatized. And that's when they announce it's time for drinks and dinner, like actual dinner. So it's fine again. Whatever. Food, feed me. This is good.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then we dive into the next thing that comes up in the next part of the story is the family party. There's 144 guests in the family tent alone. And that's just heads of family, the major cousins, like the children aren't even invited. They don't get to play with the adults. This is the adults table. And there's 144 of them, which is one gross. And in the Shire, it's rude to refer to people in that way, but you know, eggs or whatever, fine. But not people, specifically not people. But 144 is important because it's Frodo's 33rd birthday and it's Bilbo's 111th birthday. And Bilbo is peculiar and likes his silly little jokes, which is like a common theme throughout the chapter. And we're going to discuss that because it is the personality that comes through. So it comes to the end of the night, and everyone is dreading the speech because Bilbo is going to give a speech. And this is going to, like, the way it's set up is like it's going to be the mother of all train wreck of best man speeches. But it really isn't. It's peculiar. He says, like, one of the iconic lines of the books and movies, and I can't remember off the top of my head. So do you guys have it?
I don't know half of you as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you as well as you deserve.
And that's what he says to his friends and guests and family, and nobody really knows if they've been insulted or not. So while they're puzzling that out, he orders more wine out, and then he tells everybody he has drawn them all together for a purpose. First, it's his birthday. Second, he's officially rolling out Frodo as his heir, so he's absolutely in line to inherit everything when Bilbo goes. And third, Bilbo announces he's going. He says, I've had enough. Goodbye. I'm going on another adventure. There's a flash of light, and Bilbo disappears. And this is considered extraordinarily bad manners. So Frodo's left kind of holding the bag, and his guests are a little justifiably unhappy, but they just keep eating and drinking because that is primarily the pastime in the Shire. And so Bilbo is forgiven because he is generally very generous with food and drink. Then the next scene cuts us back to Bilbo's study, where Bilbo is making his final preparations. He's got 3 dwarves with him. They're helping him pack some bags. They're going to do the carrying, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what else you'd bring a dwarf for. And he has his legal documents. He puts in an envelope for Frodo, and he puts it up on the mantle. And then he has his magic ring, and he puts that in an envelope and goes to put it on the mantle, and somehow it ends up in his pocket. And he realizes this, and he comes to the conclusion that he's okay with that. He doesn't mind it. It's his. Why doesn't he keep it? Why shouldn't he bring it with him? It's his most precious possession. And then Gandalf comes in. And, they have a quick discussion, and Gandalf points out that Bilbo is probably not as funny as he thinks he is. And then also points out that Bilbo still has the ring in his pocket. And this turns into a big confrontation. Bilbo becomes like unjustifiably upset and protective, accuses Gandalf, his like a friend of his for 50 years, accuses him of, actually it's like 65 years or something. Yeah. So accuses him of being a thief and wanting to steal it from him. And then Gandalf puts on his big voice and stands up real tall, which is very hard in a hobbit hole because they're all 4 feet tall and the ceilings are only 5 feet tall. And says, I'm here to help you. Just do what you plan to do and leave the ring for Frodo. And Bilbo takes a second and he says, you know what? You're right. Something needs to change. I need to get out of here, and this is a part of here, so I'm going to leave it. But why don't you take it? And Gandalf physically recoils from the act of accepting the envelope with this ring in it, and just says, nope, just leave it on the mantle. Just that was the plan. Do it. And so he does. He pops it up there, and it is like a tremendous weight is off him. He's immediately happier. He's excited to get going. He sings a little song, and he says, dwarves, we're out of here. And Bilbo Baggins just disappears into the night. And that's it. Then we cut to some hours later, 2 a.m. Everybody's been eating and drinking, and everyone has been, has thoroughly forgotten how insulted they may or may not have been. And there's this exchange between Gandalf and Frodo, again, in the study, where Frodo realizes how much he's going to miss Bilbo, and how if Bilbo had just asked him to go, he would have gone. He doesn't know where he's going, but he would have gone with him. And instead, he's inherited everything. This huge home called Bag End, tons of rooms, tunnels, the whole thing. Hobbits like to live underground, so it all makes sense. All the money, all the property, everything. He's now he went from being an orphan over the course of this adoption to now being the heir, to being the richest person in the country. And he's reflecting on it, and the only conclusion he can come to is just he misses Bilbo, and he's going to miss Bilbo. But Bilbo left his magic ring, so that's interesting at least. So now because Frodo has heard a version of the story of how Bilbo got it, because nobody really knows, because Bilbo tells a couple of different versions of it, but that's all in The Hobbit. And what you have is this interaction between Gandalf and Frodo, where Frodo's like, oh, well, at least I have this magic ring, right? So I can get out of like awkward social occasions, because that's what hobbits are mostly concerned with. And Gandalf's like, I would rather you didn't do that. This is a magic ring. They're kind of a big deal. This isn't for avoiding like awkward conversations in the grocery store. Just hang on to it. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. I'm going to bed. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So then the next day is the gift giving. So in addition to willing everything to Frodo, Bilbo has tagged hundreds of things as gifts for specific people. And again, Bilbo thinks he's really funny. So like the nature of some of these gifts, there's an umbrella for the guy who has a habit of just walking away with other people's umbrellas. Like, can I borrow this? And then you just never see it again.
Right, yeah.
And stuff like that. And the chapter is like, it's like a page and a half of just like kind of gifts where Bilbo thinks he's being funny, but it's absolutely rude. And so it's all these things. And meanwhile, everyone's heard that, oh, they're giving away gifts at Bag End. Well, Bag End's also stuffed with gold. Like, how else does he keep feeding everybody like this? Where does his money come from? Nobody knows. He went on an adventure and he came back rich. Clearly, he's buried it in the walls. So, like, people just show up and start, like, banging holes in the walls, and they're taking their gifts, and they're walking away with things that they feel like maybe should have been a gift for them. And Frodo's over it. He's absolutely done with it. And he says to his cousin, Mary Brandybuck, please, God, just, like, close the door, get people out of here, we're done for the day. So he sits down, he has a cup of tea or whatever he does. Mary gets everybody off the property, shuts all the doors, and they sit down and the door rings. The door starts banging. Somebody's at the door and they have no fucks to give. And so they ignore it. And then a couple of seconds later and a couple of very loud knocks later, Gandalf pops his face in the window and threatens to like blow the door down if you don't let me in right now. Like, I'm not some hanger-on come to steal your fucking potatoes. I'm Gandalf, let me in.
Right, yes. Yes.
So that's kind of the moment that Gandalf has with Frodo. And he comes in and Mary leaves and it's just the two of them again. And Gandalf's primary purpose here is to recap to Frodo, you have a magic ring. It's important. But I don't know much about it, but I think I might. So I'm going to go, and I will return when I know more, and I have no idea when that's going to be. But until then, keep it secret, keep it safe. Don't use it to avoid awkward lunches. And then he leaves, and he leaves worried. Like he's carrying a weight with him, like he has a concern.
Yeah.
And that's how the chapter ends.
Beautiful summary.
Yeah, that was
Crying.
great.
I'm tearing up. So, chapter 1 of The Fellowship of the Ring actually surprised me. I was nervous going into it. I had almost anxiety. I've heard so much about this book and like how intense it is. And I was actually sitting like at my table with RJ. We were sitting across from each other, and I had my computer to take copious notes. And I had the book to my left, which is right here. We all have different versions of the book, basically, I'm pretty sure.
Except for me and Pat.
It's funny. I actually got your version as well, but the old man version.
Why is
What
it
makes
different,
it an old
Chris?
man version?
Why is it different?
The print in this one is ginormous.
Oh,
It's like size
my
16.
God.
It's like
font.
pirate scroll font. It's amazing. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. So I was sitting there and I have the book open, and we also put on Spotify through the Bluetooth speaker really loudly Andy Serkis doing the read through of the book. So we were listening to it while reading it. I have a hard time with my ADD remembering things, so I was like, let's cement these words into my brain as much as possible. And we hit play, and the first couple lines begin, and it's Andy Serkis reading the opening poem of the book, which for those who have not read the book, who are like me, who are new to the book, there's a prologue in the book, and we're not getting into that because it's just a lot of history, and it has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. It just gives you all the information you need to know if you've never seen or heard of anything that Tolkien's ever done, what a hobbit is, what the dwarves are, some of the history of the politics of them. But we ended up skipping that. So
Some of us.
some of us did. You do read it?
I attempted to read it. It took
You didn't
me-
tell her we weren't reading it?
He did not.
we made that decision independently.
Yeah, that was a secret decision.
Honest to God, I didn't think you would even try.
You know, I had to get everything done and do my homework correctly.
Did you like
it's,
it?
No. It's, I don't know, maybe like 10 pages long. It took me like 3 hours to read it because I kept falling asleep.
Oh my God.
It was not written by J.R.R. Tolkien. It was written by his son. And it's basically just the driest background context that you could need if it wasn't 2024 and everybody hasn't seen the movies.
Right.
And
Like,
had, what is a hobbit and had that kind of information in their brain already.
right. So that makes sense. So Pat and I had decided when we were working on this beautiful set not to read it. So I knew right away, I'm not reading this shit. And I flipped ahead. And anyway, there's a poem, and to hear Andy Serkis read it with his unbelievable voice. And Andy Serkis was an actor from the movie Lord of the Rings. I figured before we begin discussing on the official first episode of this podcast, that I would read this poem to kick us off the same way that Andy did.
Can you read it in his voice?
Oh no. But I'll try to be cinematic with it.
Superb.
I have almost a woman's voice, so I don't have a good baritone speaking voice like manly men. I have a very girly, high pitched voice.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, that's why we get along so well. It's our voices. Oh, we hear each other's similar voices.
Your high
All right.
pitches
I need more
irritate
wine.
dogs.
So this is the opening poem, and I think it sets the tone so beautifully. So here it is. 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky. 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone. 9 for mortal men doomed to die. 1 for the dark lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all. 1 ring to find them. 1 ring to bring them all. And in the darkness bind them. In the land of Mordor where the shadows lie.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
That was hot.
But man, that's just like my I got like chills just
So good.
hearing it. And I was like, do you guys do like roller coasters?
Used to.
Yeah.
You do not. I know you do not. You don't fuck with
Petrified.
roller coasters. But I love roller coasters. And I've been on roller coasters 1,000 times. And every single time I get on one and you like clamp down the thing and you hear like and you're starting to move forward and go up the ramp, like the hair on my neck stands up and I'm like, I'm about to go on the craziest ride ever. And I had that reading a book
That's awesome.
by a poem. And I was like, oh, this is going to be crazy.
Well, do you want the good news or the bad news?
I don't know.
So
Give me the really good bad news
the really good bad news
or the bad good news.
I think it's the same news.
It is all the same news. Really. So this is the best poem by far. And it's,
He did a good job putting it up front then.
it dives. The quality goes down real hard, real fast. It doesn't stop him from putting them in every single chapter because the man liked to write songs and verse and everything. He was a linguist. This whole project, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, all started because he's a linguist and he invented a language and then wanted a world for that language to inhabit. Because language and the growth of language is a reflection of the world and usage and language such as it's all very interesting. Very dry and not for here. But the point is that he built a world around the Elvish language.
Yeah. He is good with language. The first note I have here that I took when we were reading this was lots of bees. The very first paragraph basically says,
wait.
Bilbo Baggins of Bag End's birthday bash.
Okay, you're skipping the title. You're just ignore the long expected party with the hyphen between long and expected. You skip over that and go to the alliterative bees.
It's very important.
It's very important.
What we're witnessing
Why?
here. What we're witnessing here is a difference in level of appreciation of literature.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the bees.
Chris
you
just
like
likes the
hyphens.
alliteration.
Get over it.
So if you didn't have the hyphen, you would think it was a very long in time party. Like it was going to take all night.
It did.
But it
It took
did.
multiple
However,
days.
More
with
than a
this,
night.
with the hyphen joining the long and expected, they had to wait a long time for this party. They were anticipating it for years, and it was finally happening. I also think it was a nod to this is after The Hobbit. The Hobbit was in the 1930s. This is in 1954. It's a long expected sequel.
Oh, damn, that's great.
Good point.
So I geeked out just on the title of chapter 1, and I'm in for this journey.
Did not take long.
3 words in, and she's sold.
Sold.
Good news. There's a lot more.
I can't wait. So to get back to your bees,
I just thought it was interesting. I already said it. The Bilbo Baggins Bag End birthday bash.
say that 5 times fast.
I love it. It's amazing.
It's great.
Well, Laura, what did you think about the writing style?
I thought the writing style was really fun. It was more, I don't know, approachable than I expected, especially after reading that prologue. I was slightly concerned after reading the prologue by Tolkien's son, which was a little drier. So, yeah, I thought that the prose was really fun. It was just easy to read, easy to pay attention to. And some of the language, some of the words that he came up with were just so wonderful and pleasant. So what got me, I think maybe like page 2 or something of the chapter, he uses the word gentle hobbit instead of gentleman. And I was like, oh, I love it.
So instead
was
of
what sold
gentleman,
me.
it's like gentle hobbit.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So cute.
I
So
like
that sold
that.
me on the chapter.
Awesome.
I like that. I think I have another note here about when they talk about money later on, they call it jewels.
Yes, with 2 O's.
JOOLS. And I just think that was so cute.
I think it's a great way to like indicate that they pronounce things differently. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
that like maybe they sound a little funny when they say words that we would hear differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. But Chris, what does note 12 say?
Oh, do they talk like Cockney dickheads?
Oh my God. I see them more in a brogue, like an Irish brogue.
Yeah, like it's meant to be more like manorial, like country English.
Well, so let me give some context to this. So Bilbo has some family members called the Sackville Bagginses. I think I'm saying that correct.
What a rough name.
It's a
Yeah,
terrible
that's
name. And the way he introduces them, it's pretty early on. It's kind of mentioned that I honestly, I don't remember all the different family names, but
It's on page
there's
1.
the Brandy Bucks, there's the this, there's the that, there's tons of them. Tooks and this. He mentions the Sackville Bagginses. Now, granted, at this point in the chapter, we have not met them, but he talks down about them. He talks up about everybody else and mentions Sackville, and he goes, I don't like them.
Yes.
And I took a note here. What the heck did the Sackville Bagginses do? I'm curious. Like, it's like a second cousin. Maybe they're nice. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're misunderstood.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
So at the end of Bilbo's first adventure, which is The Hobbit, they had him declared legally dead, and then Bilbo came home to the estate sale.
That is unfortunate.
Right.
That would make me not very happy with my family as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's what they did.
Wait, how long was Bilbo gone on
like
his
a
adventure?
year.
A year.
To be fair, he left in the night again with dwarves and Gandalf, and no note to anybody. He was just gone. But they waited 1 calendar year to have him declared legally dead.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
No.
Do we think that's reasonable? No.
I don't know. If you don't hear from anyone in a year, granted, there were no phones, there were no ways of communication if you went on a travel.
No carrier pigeons.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think in the society we're in, I think it's like 2 weeks.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah, I guess.
If like
I guess,
a 13-year-old girl is lost in the woods, it's like day 5. The cops are like, she's done, dude. It's hard,
God.
man. Wolves got her, maybe bears. That's it. So I think that the fact they gave him a year, that's not bad.
Well, it's not like they had a body like when Frodo's
I
dad
think I'm
Drogo
team
drowned.
Sackville Bagginses.
No, Jesus God.
And I
Die on a different
I
hill.
cared for him. And then all of a sudden, Andy Serkis came on, and he started talking as the Sackville Bagginses, like a Cockney dickhead. And I was like, oh, are they like pose, like
Posh.
lame-os, like I don't know, they like
Yeah.
not smart, like weirdo cousins. And then it like clicked, and I was like, oh, I get it. They're trash.
Oh.
I disagree.
That's how I was reading it. They're like the not cool family members, and I was like, oh,
They're not
I got you,
kind.
Bilbo.
They're not kind, but because they feel thwarted. And it's farther in the chapter.
What was
but-
Lobelia's gift? Lobelia Sackville Baggins. Her gift from Bilbo was a pile of silver spoons because she had stolen a bunch of them previously.
Trash.
Yeah. That's
Well, that's
pretty
because
trashy.
her
That bitch is
husband.
trash.
Yeah.
This was her husband, Otho, was supposed to be the heir. And then he adopted Frodo.
Yeah.
And all their hopes and dreams of the mansion, the money, the jewels,
That really does
the
suck.
title was ripped away. And they thought he was dead once prior. And they had the house then. And he was ripped away then. I'm not saying I agree with
So they lost Bag End twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Imagine you win the lottery and then you find out the ticket is somebody else's.
Twice.
Now they're also not kind or generous or funny, so I don't have their back. But
Yeah.
just to play devil's advocate from their perspective,
No, they're very, very.
Yeah.
That fucking sucks.
You
Yeah.
can see,
Sorry.
I made a note later on. Pat, would you mind reading note 64?
oh my god,
Note, Note 64. Fuck the Sackville Bagginses. Ha ha.
oh my god.
So I joined Team Bilbo by the end of it.
All right, that's
Okay.
good.
42 talking points later.
Yeah.
He came around. It's good.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, speaking of gifts. Okay, so we established that like for hobbits on their birthday, they give gifts away. I want to do that.
Which I do love that.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
I think that's the cutest thing.
My birthday is in November. So
what are
am-
you giving everybody?
I don't know. It depends on what you give me.
I
got
could
four.
use. Oh wait, no, sorry.
Okay. No, but I was just going to say, like, I think that that's fun and it's cute and we should do it. But also, like, there's a ton of gifts given away in the chapter. What's your favorite present and, like, little, like, shitty snide, like, note that Bilbo adds? Because Bilbo thinks he's extremely funny. He's just rude and leaving and he knows it.
Ooh, I think my favorite one, and I actually wrote it down, is Hugo Bracegirdle. He was a great borrower of books, worse than usual at returning them. So Bilbo Baggins gifted him an empty bookcase.
This
Genius.
is perfect for RJ, who also loves books. Although I do not think she steals books,
I do not. I do return them in a timely fashion.
but she could use a lot of empty bookcases.
A lot
But
of
she does
bookcases.
get really friggin' mad at people who do steal her books,
Oh, I mean, totally fair.
which is understandable.
Absolutely justified. My favorite gift was probably Lobelia's. As a present on a case of silver spoons, Bilbo believed that she had acquired a good many of his spoons while he was away on his former journey. Lobelia knew that quite well. When she arrived later in the day, she took the point at once, but she also took the spoons.
I love that.
That is so
Yeah.
good.
This
I
writing
love
is just,
that.
it's clever. I enjoy it.
Yeah, the writing is clever, right?
Yeah.
So, like, one thing I absolutely loved about this chapter is the way it's kind of narrated to us because there's actually very little dialogue. It's mostly just like the narrator explaining the party and everything that happens. So Bilbo's speech is narrated to us in a way that is fucking hilarious.
Oh, yeah, you should read some of those.
Okay. Yeah, I got a couple of moments, but so while I'm looking for that, thank you. Okay. Okay. So he says, "Indeed, I bring you for three purposes. First of all, to tell you I'm immensely fond of you all, and that 11 is too short a time to live amongst such admirable hobbits. Period." Tremendous outburst of approval. Secondly, to celebrate my birthday, cheers again.
I'm a hobbit. I'm many hobbits right now.
Together, we score 144. Your numbers were chosen to fit that remarkable total. One gross, if I may use the expression. No cheers. That's fucking hilarious.
I love that.
Yeah.
Everybody just is like, what?
No cheers. This was ridiculous.
Yes.
This was ridiculous.
It's amazing.
Many
It's-
of his guests, and especially the Sackville Bagginses, were insulted,
Yeah.
feeling that they'd only been asked to fill the required number like goods in a package.
Yep. Yeah, like eggs.
Like
I
eggs.
love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, like, I feel like so much of this chapter is Tolkien putting himself into Bilbo, and into Bilbo's expressions and the things he loves and the way he reacts to people, because they mention at some point that like wheelbarrows come for guests at like midnight, like people who are just passed out on his property. He specifically hired people with wheelbarrows to come and just collect the bodies. At his own son's actual like 21st birthday.
His own son?
Tolkien.
Okay.
At Tolkien's son's 21st birthday party, the invitation went out and it said, carriages at, party starts at 4, carriages at 10, wheelbarrows at 11,
Hearses at dawn, I think.
yeah, hearses at dawn. Like,
Assuming people just drank themselves to death?
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the party.
I
That was the
wonder
party.
how many did, and Bilbo was like, I don't care.
He
Never
doesn't
seen-
know.
he's
He
like-
left.
Yeah, he left. He was like, oh.
He left.
Not my problem.
Yeah, he left Frodo to clean up literally all the messes.
Yeah. What a nice guy.
Right?
Wish I had an uncle like that.
Really?
No.
Well, like, to be fair, it was a badass party. He cleaned out the countryside. Like, you couldn't buy beef or eggs anymore because they had literally all been eaten at the party.
There was a Shire-wide famine for a month after that.
That's grim.
Of course, the Irish have the famine.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Well, like, the Shire is this, like, wholesome little place. It's meant to be this, like, this English countryside, this perfect little teeny tiny country.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you are 10 miles down the road, you're on the borders between what's acceptable and what's weird. And 12 miles down the border, they're not people. They don't even speak the
That's
same
where the
language anymore.
Saxville Bagginses live, and they all wear orange sashes.
Jesus Christ.
Stop.
Oh my God.
Oh, long live the Republic. Anyway, so that's not in the prologue, by the way.
So that was a perfect lead up to the third and final part of that. Those were just the first two of his speech. The third one is his announcement that he says really loud, where he just steps up and says, as I said, 11 years is far too short a time to spend among you. This is the end. I am going. I am leaving. Now. Goodbye. And he just puts the ring on, flash of light, and poof, he disappears. That is insane.
Can I jump in right there?
Yeah.
Because when that moment happened, I was thinking about, okay, so he's got this magic ring that when he puts it on, he can be invisible and no one sees him. And then I thought, it's not very good for being invisible if when you put it on, a big flash of light went off. Like an old fashioned like photograph from the 1800s, like the bulb exploded. And I was thinking to myself, that's terrible. And then I was like, Gandalf.
Gandalf.
There is someone there who can do magic. Yes. That took me a second.
But you have quite a hot take on Gandalf.
Look, I have said it before. I was talking about before we started recording. I think I got done dirty with Ian McKellen because that's the only Gandalf I know and I love him. This Gandalf can fuck off. I don't like the Gandalf in this book so far because he comes in, and my note even says Gandalf is kind of a dick. He kind of comes in, he blows past everybody. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I love this old guy. He's so fun every time he comes, he hangs out, and he just walks right past them, and they're like, excuse me. And he's like, nope. And then he just walks inside and ignores everybody. Then they're like, well, I guess we'll talk to him later. They go to this big party, and he sends off like a terrifying dragon just to fuck with these like 3.5 foot tall people.
It's a bunch of drunk midgets.
Yeah, and it's just I just love how. I mean, to be fair, I think he's a dick. I like him. I don't like that he's kind of a jerk, but I kind of dig that he is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to say that.
I think it's justified, though.
I agree. How old is Gandalf?
At this point,
do you want the real answer?
Yeah. It's a spoiler.
I don't know.
Lore.
Like 3,000 years old.
He's 3,000.
Actually, he's technically timeless. We don't want to go into that.
All right.
Yeah.
But he's a very old man.
He's messing around with some little baby hobbits that don't that think he's just a little magician.
Yeah, they see him as an attraction. That's the way it's described in the book.
Like if you went into
would
the
maybe
woods and
not
you
pick
found a group of people this big, and you walked up and you went, and they were like, ah, and ran away. It's kind of the highlight of your year.
That's, that's literally me at every family Christmas party when I see a child.
I was gonna say it's like chasing bunnies.
Yeah.
So to me, it's interesting you see it that way because I see it completely different. I see it as this being who's timeless, who hides his power, has fallen in love for this simple, sweet, wholesome people, and he becomes such good friends with Bilbo. I'm trying to say this as vague and spoiler-free as possible. And he's here to celebrate his friend, but he's famous in this country. And so everyone wants a piece of him. It's sort of like the babysitter who's been playing with the kids, trying to be the zombie for hours. They want everything now. He's had it. He's had enough. They treat him like the puppeteer. And he's way more than that. And so he has no more time. He's like, my patience is done with you. You'll get your tricks when you get them. I'm here to see my friend. Leave me alone.
They don't have the appropriate respect for him.
They do not. And that's okay because he doesn't want them to know who he is. He wants to be on their level. But then the time that I see your point is with Frodo, who is the sweetest soul, so compassionate, doesn't have a bad bone in his body. He does snub him, which is upsetting in that first interaction. And that's when you got upset. But later on, with Gandalf, when all the the hobbits are there with the fireworks and the party, I think it is warranted for him just to snub off and be with Bilbo. I don't know. It's sort of like the babysitter that's just had too much attention. They want too much from him. And he's like, you have no idea the power and respect I actually deserve. I just want to be away.
He's like, okay, Zoomer.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
Oh man. So Chris, what I'm gonna say something real fast, and we're gonna touch the movie just very, very gently on this. I know, no touching. The Gandalf as you perceive him as written, right? You said Ian McKellen did you dirty. The original casting for Gandalf was Sean Connery. Does that fit better?
Yes.
Right?
Sean Connery would have made a better book Gandalf.
I'm gonna be totally honest. Until we had this discussion, I've read this book a million billion times, seen the movies like more times than I can count. Until you really brought up that Gandalf's kind of a dick.
He kind of is.
I thought Sean Connery as the first pass for Gandalf was an insane choice. Like somebody's just like, this is a weird book for weird children. We need somebody to drag in butts to seats when we make these movies. Sean Connery's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that kind of fits.
I mean, it's either him or Burt Reynolds, right?
Jesus Christ.
Oh, God.
This is super cool.
And Burt Reynolds is like, what do you want?
oh, fuck, don't do
With his
that.
mustache?
Because then again, when he's with Bilbo after Bilbo's disappeared to put on the ring and is going to leave, and he gets aggressive with Bilbo and finally shows his full power, it's out of love for Bilbo, his respect for him, his friendship for him. He acts
He should have kicked him like a soccer ball.
but because he loves him, he would never hurt him like that. That's the thing is he puts himself in a position where Bilbo can get up in his face and be rude to him because that's how much he loves him.
I thought it was so funny that you bring that up because that probably is my favorite part of the chapter is when Bilbo starts to like retreat into this alter ego. Yeah, it's like very like cat, like when you're like petting your cat and the cat like bites you and you're like, what the fuck? And it's like, ha! Like,
So like his eyes sinking into his face.
yeah, like he just turns into like a little monster for a second. And then he threatens Gandalf. And
Like a toddler pulls a knife on
yeah,
you.
he's like, ah! and like
I'm not going to bed.
yeah, and I just wanted him to just kick him through the window. It shows a wide shot of him flipping through the air into the field, like a classic Looney Tunes, like where they flick the character and it flies into the sunset, you know? And I just wanted that to happen so bad. He didn't do it because he's a good guy. He's better than me. But
He's such a dick.
he is a dick.
And he's still better than Chris.
I know.
Love you, buddy.
I know.
So speaking of Gandalf, we sort of touched on this in the synopsis, but one of my favorite lines that's in the book that literally makes me laugh out loud when I read it, and I feel like I lost the page. I was 36. Sorry. Is it's a very intense and dramatic moment when Frodo inherits the ring and is joking around like, I might put this on to avoid people in social settings. And Gandalf's like, no, no, no. This is a super intense magic ring. And you'd think it'd be this huge scene, but in the book, he says, I should not make use of it if I were you, but keep it secret and keep it safe. Now I am going to bed. There's a pause, and it smash cuts to the next morning where Frodo's having a truly trying afternoon.
He's hungover as
He's
fuck.
hungover. He's tired. There's these people banging on the door for the gifts and the stuff because they know that there's been gifts left for several family members. And Frodo is just left with this ring and this power and this thing. And Gandalf's like, I'm going to tell you to do all this, but I have to go to sleep in the guest room.
Yeah.
I think that's hysterical.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then it doesn't cut back to like way after everyone comes in and gives the gifts, the spoons, the bookcases, etc. Gandalf shows up, but they don't know it's him. It's Merry and Frodo hanging out, and they hear a banging at the door. And I believe it's Merry says, Lobelia again, most likely. She must have thought of something really nasty, and I've come back again to say it. I can't wait.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Right? And they go on with their tea. And the banging gets even more intense until suddenly the wizard's head appears at the window. If you don't let me in, Frodo, I shall blow your door right down your hole and out through the hill. Such a threat, right? Mm-hmm. He's such an ass here. I will say that. How does Frodo respond? He says, my dear Gandalf, half a minute. If you don't fall in love with Frodo in that moment, you don't have a soul. That for me, I am Team Frodo. As much as I'm Team Gandalf, I'm Team Frodo in that moment. And I'm yes-anding this little character, and I'm all in.
Yeah.
Aww.
I love that.
Like, if someone banged on my window screaming after I had a trying afternoon where everyone wanted a piece of me and then threatened to blow my house down a hole, I'd be like, get the hell out. How dare you? And Frodo smiles, in my mind, I saw it as that, and says, my dear Gandalf.
That is amazing because we had this happen in real life.
Oh my God, we did.
And we reacted quite differently.
Oh my God. What?
In 2018, we were living in Manayunk, which is outside of Philadelphia. And it's so weird I think about it now, but we had like a row home on the street, which meant our windows in our living room were just along the sidewalk. And Manayunk is filled with many, many, many drunk kids walking around.
Not kids, college age,
Well, yeah, they're kids. You know,
children.
they're not children. They're not adults either, though. You know, they're just like zombies, like young zombies.
Oh my
And they're all
God.
drunk, and they just wander along. And would this freak you guys out if you were watching like a movie? We were watching a scary movie. I believe we were
Evil
watching
Dead.
The Evil Dead, and which is a terrifying movie. Also, my favorite movie of all time. And you know, heads are passing like in your periphery out the window, and we looked in the window, and my friend Joe happened to be in town, didn't tell us, and his head was in the window. And I had a heart attack.
I screamed.
Like
Like
RJ
blood-
screamed at the top of her lungs.
Blood-curdling horror movie, like Scream Queen.
Yeah. And my
Like-
foot went up, and the coffee table flipped, and it
Cats
was
were jumping in the air. It was like...
so. And that was someone who's smaller than me, didn't say anything, and was just doing that in the window. I imagine if I was this tall, this tall, and Gandalf shows up, which by the way, to get into, his head's coming from the top, not from the bottom,
Right.
because he's so
He's
big,
bending
Leaning
down.
over.
and he pops in. It is pretty intense of a moment, and Frodo handles it like a boss, and he's just like,
With love, compassion.
"Gotcha, give me a second, I'll
Chagrin.
be right there." Which is
I
cool.
mean, like, did he have much of a choice. And how he handled that with a big, angry Gandalf at the window.
I just wish it would have said like Frodo screamed, and I'd be like, yeah,
Frodo shit his pants.
I'm not alone. See, that's normal.
I love that they acknowledge that he's a wizard, but also that apparently his only power is fireworks.
Yeah.
Like
Which,
a
to be
boss
fair,
ass
if
fireworks.
somebody could just make these things happen, I'd be like, that guy's cool. Fireworks?
yeah.
Heck
Well,
yeah.
are you sure he's cool? Because his chosen fireworks were like, my best friend's birthday party. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tickle his PTSD.
But see, I think Frodo doesn't react in a false way. I think it's very genuine because later in that same moment, which is the end of the chapter, Frodo starts to say some pretty
I love you.
some pretty perceptive things to him. At one point, he asks him if he's afraid, and Gandalf kind of blows it away. He's like, "Oh, I'm fine," because he usually has his front up and people can't see through it. And at the very end, Frodo saw him to the door and gave a final wave of his hand and walked off at a surprising pace. But Frodo thought the old wizard looked unusually bent, almost as if he was carrying a great weight. The evening was closing in, and his cloaked figure quickly vanished into the twilight. Frodo did not see him again for a long time. But that moment where he's noticing how weighed down by the thought of the ring and the stress of what it could be, he's a very perceptive, empathetic little being. And I don't know. This part is where I'm like, I love Frodo.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we're about to wrap up because that is the end of the chapter. But there's one last thing that I want to talk about. I don't know if
I have something, too.
anybody else wants to, but my last thing I want to talk about really is sort of understanding that some of my favorite characters from the movies were Mary and Sam. I really liked them. And we didn't get to meet Sam in this first chapter. Sam doesn't appear. He comes up, but we don't get to meet him. We do meet his father, Ham.
Master Hamfast, as Bilbo
Hamfast
lovingly said.
is his name, which makes me curious at why it's Samwise and not Samfast. But
To be continued.
I do think that we should bring back the tradition of naming our kids our name with a different letter. It's a really good thing. People could know.
So my child's going to be Dobby?
Dobby is beloved.
Dobby Jean.
Dobby Jean, hell self. I thought you were going to say naming our children after cured meats. So
Oh my
I'm glad we're
God.
not doing that. Unless, I don't know, salami.
Prosciutto.
We're Irish, not Italian.
Ham. It's just ham.
It's potato.
Ham. This is my son Poe, short for potato.
Potato. It's not.
But I thought
Good old tater.
when it said Ham and Sam, I just was like, I love this. There's all this rich information about the family and the culture and the world. And Frodo's father
Drogo.
is Drogo.
Sister Dora.
This is Dora.
Bilbo, Frodo, Drogo.
It's
Yeah.
It's so good.
Ham Sam.
Ham Sam.
Do you,
Ham sandwich.
Ham Sam.
do you? Okay, so I'm going to interrupt real fast on that.
Pata.
Yep. Actually, my middle name is Patrick, and so is my confirmation name. Because when you let a 13-year-old pick their confirmation names, if you're not Catholic, look it up.
Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick.
His name is Patrick.
I'm James Patrick. But anyway, point is,
The Graver last name was James.
But my
Jimmy Pat Jim.
my grandfather was James Patrick, and my father was James Patrick James. Because again, when you let children pick names, they do things like this.
Yeah.
But the point is the rhyming scheme is super strong in pre-Roman British culture.
Yeah.
So he's tapping into something that is kind of known, kind
Where
of
was
not.
Tolkien from?
England.
England?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
And when did
really
this
cool.
book come out?
1954.
1954. So this is
And
the 50s. Tolkien is.
The Hobbit was 1937.
But
how old is Tolkien when this is coming out? Is he an old guy? Is he young?
Not old, but
no, he fought in World War
He
One.
was in the war, yeah.
So he's probably 60,
In the 50s, he's probably 70. Yeah.
70.
yeah.
65, 70.
So we mentioned that I'm going to be doing some treats based on the chapter. And I was like, oh, first chapter, there's a party, there's a feast. This is going to be great. I am personally offended that they did not name a single thing that was eaten or a single thing that was
thought
drunk.
the same thing.
They did though. They did mention two
Potatoes.
foods and cabbage.
But those were not eaten at the feast. That was just like a in passing
Well, because
note.
Yeah.
that somebody
Hamfast
said.
is the master
Yeah.
potato farmer.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was like,
Hamfast.
I'm gonna have
bow
so many
down to
ideas.
potato farmer.
I was like, I'm gonna have so many ideas on what to cook for this chapter. Not a single thing was mentioned.
So what did you come up with? Oh, it's a surprise.
It's a surprise.
The
You'll see soon.
dang-a-tang.
I would like to be surprised.
Potatoes
All right.
and cabbage.
Is that?
I would love potatoes and cabbage.
I think that's a
Apologize.
wrap on chapter 1.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition.
We got a specialty treat coming up from Laura.
Ow, ow.
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right, let's go.
Okay, and then we can read the prologue.
Have fast.
All right, it's time for our treat segment. So, surprise for everybody. Open your eyes in 3, 2, 1.
But when do I remove my hand?
This is beautiful.
Wow.
All right.
What do we have here?
In honor of not only our first episode, but also Bilbo's 111th birthday
111th birthday.
and
11 to
Frodo's
1.
33rd birthday. Almost
birthday,
got that
Frodo.
wrong. We're going to have a toast of mead, which feels appropriate to the time. I don't know. I could be full of shit. But mead is a fermented honey beverage. People will call it honey wine. And yeah, it's delicious. This is actually an elderberry mead. And the surprise isn't quite over because the wonderful treat around the rim of your glass will harken back to our chapter.
Okay.
Interesting.
The mead is red.
The mead is red from
right,
the
guys.
elderberry.
Wait, to be
Cheers.
fair, I thought you said we're going to toast me.
No, sorry.
Yeah, we're toasting
I
me
was
right
like,
now.
ah, okay, cool. Sounds good.
All right.
All right, cheers.
All right,
Cheers.
to Bilbo and maybe Frodo.
And definitely Frodo. Oh my god. Are these Pop Rocks?
One got stuck in my tooth.
Oh my god, it's Gandalf's firecrackers!
Yep.
I love this.
We're honoring Gandalf as well. And his poor cheap tricks.
Oh my god, this is so good. It's very tasty.
How loud are these?
I don't know. Will they come up on the microphones? I can definitely hear them in everybody else's
For
mouth.
those of you who are listening, not watching, Chris now has the mic down his mouth.
Can you hear it? I can feel it.
You got some sound effects in your beard.
I feel like I'm slowly having a stroke.
you kind of look it too.
Wow, this is very tasty.
You were like deep throating your mic there for a second.
It's all over my lips and face.
I like this, but I have no idea how I'm going to get the honey dripping down the inside.
This is delicious.
There's really only one option.
You just gotta do it, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
well, that's
go
on
for
the
it.
that's on the OnlyFans.
Only tooks.
Only fools.
Only fools.
Next, we'll be reading Chapter 2, The Shadow of the Past. Follow us on social media at Fool of a Took Podcast. And also make sure to follow us on YouTube and watch along as well as listen along. And more importantly, make sure you buy the book and read along with us. See you again next time.
See you next time.
Next time, because we don't know when we're going to post the episode.
See you next time.
We don't see any of them. They see us.
See me next time.
And not just you.
See us
Yes.
next time.
Very nice.
Handsome.